I have a 2008 Bobcat 2200, club car, SNA 59212408 with the Intellitrack drive system, 4x4. The rear differential is auto-locking. The problem is that when I first put it in gear, the rear differential is not engaging. The rear drive shaft is slowly spinning, but neither of the rear axles rotate. Then after 8 to 12 seconds the differential locks and the vehicle will move just fine. I have to wait until it locks because if I give it gas, when it locks it will lurch the machine, almost spinning the tires. It is the diesel version. In the winter this problem is almost non-existent, i.e. cold makes the problem go away. Hello, thank you for allowing me to assist you. My name is I will be happy to assist you with your concern today. I will always try to reply back to you right away, however please understand that I may be busy answering another customer back and thus it may sometimes take time to reply back to you. As soon as I return I will be sure to reply back to you as soon as I am able to. Cold usually means in this case oil is thinner and thus working better. If that is the case then I suggest to try changing the diff fluid, and if that does not help you may need to open it back up and diagnose if it is binding/dirty or if there are further problems. However, being that cold it works, this usually indicates the fluid is too thin when warm, thus when cold it works, but this can also mean worn components and they function when cold fluid due to thicker, which then makes up for some of the wear. Bonuses are appreciated. If for any reason you are not satisfied, please reply back to me for further assistance, to which I will be glad to help you. The rating system is only to rate me as an expert, not the site or the product. If you have any problems for any reason, please reply back and let me know. Thanks again for using JustAnswer-Q&A and have a great day. If you need any further assistance you can reply back at any time for my help. I'd be happy to answer any other questions you have, even if not related.
Joe, thanks for your input. I checked my maintenance records. This machine currently has 170 hours on it. I changed the original gear oil at 113 hours. I used AMSOIL synthetic 75 to 90 watts extreme pressure. It could be that the gear oil is not right for this application. It would seem that if the problem was temperature related then it would get worse as I drove it more in warm weather. Again, it only happens the first time I put it in gear after it has set for anything more than 20 to 30 minutes. I did a little research on auto-locking differentials and I looked at the Bobcat parts diagram. I think the design is similar to a lock-right locker. Here is link to a YouTube which describes how it works. http://www.youtube.com/watch v=KL0POSGK. After viewing this, I could not figure out how this assembly would be slipping on both axles unless it was damaged. But then why would it start to work after the pinion/ring gear makes a few revs, or when it is cold out? Again, it could be the friction characteristics of the gear oil that is the problem. There is a rubber expansion bellows attached to the top of the differential. I plan to remove that and stick a bore scope down there. I am hoping that I will see the halves of the lock assembly and be able to determine if they are engaged. I am hoping that someone with experience with auto-locking differentials for off-road vehicles would provide input. Thanks, Dave.
Dave, I am actually also an OSA Cert automotive tech and have worked on and dealt with plenty of locking diffs. The way they work is some are one that slips grips on other, it transfers or spins both depending on the demand. Now no matter what, one side should always spin. If you get nothing at all, this is usually a very good indication of a mechanical failure within the limited slip diff carrier. Trust me, as odd as it sounds, cold fluid is cold fluid even at rest versus being hot. When hot it thins even when warm, thus at cold it can be doing what it needs to get it going versus hot and thin, allowing the problem to show its face. In the end, I think your best option is to open it up or put a scope camera in there to check it. You may also wish to drain and check for shavings/chunks. Thanks, Joe.
Joe, it is not a limited slip differential. I agree that if it was and at least one wheel was not being driven, then there would have to be a mechanical problem. Again, it is a locking differential. Is it possible that both sides could be slipping without a mechanical problem? I lifted the rear axle. I removed the oil fill plug. I used my bore scope to look inside. I see the lock carrier and the lock assembly. I see the slotted mating surfaces on the lock assembly. It looks fine, the machine surfaces are square. I expected to see a slotted surface for each of the two axles. There is only one slotted surface on this locker. That is different than the lockers I have seen on the internet. Maybe this explains why neither wheel spins when the lock is unlocked. I let the unit sit for several hours. Then, with the rear wheels in the air with the brakes on, I looked at the lock carrier with the bore scope. Then I had my wife start it and put it into gear. The drive shaft spun and the lock carrier spun. After about 5 seconds, the drive shaft stopped spinning. I need to repeat this to be sure, but IMHO both sides of the lock assembly spun. Why this would not transmit torque to the wheels, I do not know. There must be something about this locker design that I do not understand and is not explained on the internet. Does anyone know how these Ingersoll Rand lockers work in UTVs? Maybe I can find the exploded view through Ingersoll Rand's website.
Dave, one wheel should always spin. I have not seen a carrier to date that would allow neither wheel to spin. I would start with the easiest first, which is a fluid change, and if no improvement, then taking the unit apart for further diagnosis and rebuild. Thanks, Joe.
One wheel should always spin. I have not seen a carrier to date that would allow neither wheel to spin. Unless the vehicle is turning, locking differentials drive both wheels with equal torque. You are describing either an open differential, or a limited slip differential. A locking differential, and in this case, an auto-locking differential. Drives both rear wheels with the same torque even if one is slipping. This is what is required for all-wheel drive. I agree that changing the gear oil might fix this problem. IMHO changing good quality gear oil is diagnosis by serial replacement, given that oil is technically a part. If a gear oil change, with OEM gear oil, fixes this, then AMSOIL high performance gear lube will go on my list of biggest mistakes made by well-minded mechanics. Still looking for the Ingersoll Rand rear locking differential parts diagram.
Dave, sorry about the confusion, I was just generally speaking in reference to carriers. I do understand yours is equipped with a locker, so please know that I do understand that. I would honestly first start with the fluid change and use the manufacturer's recommended fluid. Make sure to use the correct viscosity. In the meantime, I will search for a parts breakdown. Thanks, Joe.
Joe, I changed the fluid last night. It turns out that I put gear oil in where the manufacturing specified hydraulic/transmission fluid. There was also some small, less than a millimeter, filings in the oil. There may have been about 20 to 25 of these. Today, I will drive it for the first time. I was not able to find the Ingersoll Rand/Club car exploded parts diagram of the lock assembly. I plan to pay you for your advice as it made me dig deeper into the oil question. I will get back with you on if the change fixes it. Hopefully I did not damage it with the gear oil.
Dave, if in fact a model calls for trans/hide fluid over gear oil, then depending on how thick, the gear oil could very well in fact cause damage. Gear oil is very thick and sticky. My opinion would be to drain the fluid one more time and fill again. This way what you put in had time to work around a little and help wash out the gear oil, so to speak. The incorrect fluid, in this case gear oil, could and would cause the problem. This does not mean there are not further problems, but most likely is hopefully all that was the problem. Thanks, Joe. Joe, the change to hydraulic/transmission fluid fixed the problem. I also changed the oil out of the front differential and transfer case. My mistake, the manual named Mobil 424. I assumed it was gear oil. Lesson learned. Too bad they did not identify it as hydraulic fluid. I recall thinking that it was kind of thin coming out. I ended up putting Napa 85 to 401 tractor hydraulic and transmission fluid in it. I will change it again in the next few days. Hopefully the damage is minor. My guess is that the filings in the rear differential happened when it locked/unlocked at higher RPMs. Thanks for your help. After you reply, I will rate your answer so you can get paid. I am impressed with JustAnswer. I will probably use it again. Dave.
If you have a home improvement or appliance question and want to chat with an expert now, visit justanswer.com/ythi.